So here's the painting as it looks now. I've made it quite warm and like fiery reds kind of thing. I'm actually thinking for the later stages I'm going to try to cool this down, move away from the cadmiums and pyrrole reds and move in towards some more quinacridone and punch up the blues a little bit. Despite this painting being predominantly red, I kind of want it to have a cool feel overall rather than a hot feel. I also feel like I lightened the blues far too much, so they'll be darkened a little bit. But yeah, this is where it's at right now. I think just darkening the blues a little bit, as well as lightening up a few of the blacks and replacing them with a very dark turquoise, has done quite a bit to balance out this composition. So I'm likely going to need to use a lot less of the quinacridone magentas and cooler reds than I initially thought. Let's see where this goes next. I've darkened the blue a little bit because I felt I went a little bit too far, and I've also cooled down the red and filled in a lot of the black. Here is what the painting is looking like now. As you can see, I've done a lot of work with the reds and integrated all sorts of subtle variations, going from magenta to orange, light and dark, lots of pinks. The blues I've changed up. I've darkened the reds here and lightened them here to kind of create like a lighting effect. So the contrast is higher here, so it pops forward. It reduces there, so it kind of recedes, into the backgrounds just through optical space and optical color mixing. This area here I've really crazily thickened the paint, so it's not so much through color. I don't know how well this will show on screen, but by eye it clearly pops forward, like quite physically. This area here I actually handled quite a bit differently than how I've normally painted in the past. I used to spend a lot of time waiting for one layer to dry before applying the next. But this time around, I did a whole bunch of sort of wet into wet mixing, which I think is pretty interesting. It's a lot harder to control, a lot higher risk, because when you layer things, if you screw up, you can just wipe away what's wet and what's dry, or what's underneath that is dry, so it's fine, so it's not going to ruin anything. It's higher risk, but I think it brings back more of an expressionistic kind of look and feel and paint handling. And I really enjoy painting that way. I really love that look, and it's something that I've felt has been missing from my paintings for the last long time. So I'm glad to have that back. It's kind of hard to tell with the lighting, but the black areas are actually made up of two different kinds of black mixed in both semi-gloss and matte versions, as well as two different shades of gray, as well as with a very dark turquoise and a dark blue. So there's probably like 8 different shades going on buried in that black. And on a screen you're not really going to notice, but when you're in front of the real thing looking at this painting, it just kind of adds that little something extra that you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Where if you're looking at a physical object, or if you're going to be a serious art collector and buy paintings and really look at them, I assume collectors don't want something they look at and after 3 seconds they've seen it all. I like having subtle stuff in there where, months later, or after hours of looking, you'll still find little things like, oh, I never realized that was overpainted with that, and there's that there, and I think it just makes something more visually interesting. If everything is just perfect the first time around, if, a red brushstroke is just a red brushstroke, you can look at it and you get it right away, and to me, I lose interest. I kind of prefer things like, there's like 7 different shades of red buried under there. When you look at it from different angles, different stuff happens. When you fuzz your eyes, when you look at it from a distance, when you look at it with glasses on, so it's super sharp, it adds a lot of variety, and I think makes the painting a lot more exciting to look at through the long haul. So at this point, I think I'm about 90 to 95% done. But with this style, the risk of overdoing it is always on my mind. So at this point, I stop, take the painting out of the studio, hang it on the wall in my living space, and I just live with it for a couple months. And just in looking at it in the background, the painting might sort of finish itself with exposure, if that makes any sense. You just look at it and realize, yeah, that's done. Or a few things that I have to work on will pop up, and then I can look at it beside 2 or 3 other paintings and in context decide, oh, I need to change this, this, and this. But As it stands now, I'm going to pull this out and start the next one.